Story 1: The cornfield that swallowed a body. The Interstate 94 was a ribbon of black ice and fog that January morning, stretching toward Kalamazoo like a frozen river. The temperature had plummeted to -28°C, and the dense mist blurred the edges of Ethan Ryder's headlights to 5 meters at best. Sergeant Ryder had 25 years of patrol experience in Michigan, yet something about the way the fog clung to the ground made the hairs on his neck stand on end. Beside him, Joe Valdez adjusted the camera rig strapped to his shoulder, filming for the reality show, Cops, Beyond the Call. Even in this bitter cold, Joe was grinning, whispering that tonight's footage would be epic. Ethan gave him a tight smile, though his gut churned. As they passed an abandoned gas station, something unusual caught Ethan's eye, a faint pinprick of light, flickering in the darkness. "Stay here," Ethan muttered to Joe, grabbing the bullhorn from the passenger seat. "State Trooper. Show yourself." The fog thickened around the station, swallowing the beam of his flashlight. For a heartbeat, nothing moved, then the light blinked out abruptly. Ethan froze as the sound of dragging metal echoed across the concrete floor inside the station. The scraping was deliberate, slow, and horrifyingly close. Ethan advanced cautiously, his boots crunching in the frost. Joe's camera stayed trained, recording every shadow. The interior stank immediately, an overpowering mix of death and iron, fresh blood and decay. Ethan's hand rested on his sidearm as he swung the flashlight toward the far corner. His stomach twisted violently. There, a tall figure loomed, black tape wrapped across its face, dragging a limp female body whose blood stained the floor. The figure's head snapped up, and Ethan caught the worst sight of his life, eyes pale, unblinking, almost white under the flashlight. The thing moved with unnatural speed, vanishing through the back door and into the towering cornfield beyond. Ethan's training kicked in. He chased, boots sinking in the frozen mud, fog swirling around his legs. Joe followed, struggling to keep the camera steady as stalks of corn slapped against his arms. They could hear the creatures breathing, ragged, labored, and wet, just ahead. Then, a guttural laugh echoed, low and terrifying, bouncing off the stalks in a way that made Ethan stumble. Heart hammering, he whirled back to check the body, only to find it gone. In its place was a streak of blood stretching 15 meters into the corn, and a piece of scalp tangled with blonde hair lying abandoned on the frozen ground. Ethan swallowed hard, forcing himself to breathe, while Joe muttered under his breath that no one would believe this footage. The cornfield was silent again, but the fog had thickened, seeming to swallow sound. Ethan radioed for backup, but the static crackled over the channel. He felt the hair on his arms prickle, the kind of primal fear that had nothing to do with reason. When they finally retreated to the patrol cruiser, Ethan noticed something that made his blood run colder, faint drag marks leading from the station door toward the corn, as if the earth itself had been carved. Joe's camera caught every detail, but the horror would never see the public eye. The FBI confiscated the footage the next day, claiming evidence of a federal crime. Ethan's name was cleared, but he never saw the footage again. Every time he drives past that stretch of I-94, he swears he hears the scrape, the dragging sound, echoing in the fog. Back at the station, Ethan could barely explain the look in his eyes. Joe tried to joke about editing it for TV, but Ethan's glare silenced him. He had stared at the face behind the tape too long, memorized the way it moved, the impossible whiteness of the eyes. He could feel them staring from the darkness even now, months later. He had seen what humans weren't meant to witness, someone, or something, capable of dragging a body into the corn and leaving no trace, leaving only the trail and the terror. The cold never left his bones that night. It wasn't the frost, it was knowing how thin the line was between seeing life and not. Driving that highway alone was no longer an option. Ethan always requested a partner, a second set of eyes to witness the invisible. He didn't tell them why. Who would believe him? The gas station remained abandoned, a landmark of nightmare etched in his mind. Friends who traveled the interstate occasionally asked him about it. He never spoke. He simply nodded and said, "Keep driving." Because he knew if anyone stopped, even for a moment, they might vanish like the body, leaving only a streak of blood and a whisper of laughter carried by the January wind. The fog never lifted that morning. Ethan and Joe returned to the station with trembling hands and frozen faces. The reality of what they had witnessed settled over them like ice. It wasn't just a murder, It was a predator that existed beyond law, beyond comprehension, and it would return. Ethan could still hear the rasp of the dragging sound every time he closed his eyes. Every time the wind howled across the cornfield, he imagined those pale eyes appearing in the mist, watching, waiting. And deep down, he knew that one day, someone else would enter that gas station, and the cornfield would claim another body, and the dragging sound would echo again through the fog. Story 2, The Purge Night That Was Real. Rain hammered the A1 like 1,000 tiny fists, the night blacker than any darkness Lucas Bennett had ever patrolled. 3 months on the highway beat had already taught him that the English countryside could be unforgiving, but nothing could have prepared him for this. At 2:11 a.m. on a Thursday, Lucas squinted through the streaked windshield of his cruiser. The road ahead was empty, 40 miles of nothing but asphalt slick with rain and puddles reflecting distant, faintly flickering street lamps. No traffic. No signs of life. Just rain. Then he saw it, a black BMW sitting diagonally across the lane, hazard lights flashing, doors open, interior lights blazing. No driver. Lucas's heart thudded in his chest. He radioed in, Unit 22, I've got a vehicle, no sign of a driver. Static crackled, then silence. He pulled over cautiously, rain streaming down his visor. His pulse quickened as he stepped out, boots splashing through shallow water, and approached the car. That's when it began. From the brush on the right side of the road, 9 figures emerged, masks glowing red like unholy LEDs. Each mask was perfectly smooth, featureless except for those glowing eyes. Lucas froze. His hand instinctively went to his Glock, and his training screamed at him, maintain distance. Then, from the left, 9 more appeared, forming 2 perfect lines on either side of the lane. 18 masked figures in total, standing as if choreographed, dripping wet from the storm, weapons glinting under the BMW's interior lights. Baseball bats with nails, knives, rifles, everything glinting ominously. The rain hissed on metal. One figure stepped forward, and the others raised weapons in unison. Lucas could hear the mechanical clicks as rifles were loaded, the sound crisp over the rain. The figure's voice crackled through the mask in a distorted metallic tone, 1 officer. 1 bullet cam. Tonight's lottery. Every hair on Lucas's neck stood up. His pulse spiked, adrenaline shooting through his veins like lightning. He shouted, drop your weapons. No one moved. The rain fell harder, as if the storm itself conspired with the masked assailants. He backed toward his cruiser, glancing at the open doors and the glowing red eyes, calculating every move in fractions of a second. The figure with the AK stepped slowly toward him. Every step was deliberate, amplified by the waterlogged road beneath their boots. Lucas's training, his instincts, everything told him to flee, but every instinct screamed, don't let them see fear. He bolted toward the car, diving behind the driver's side, slipping in the puddles, heart hammering. Shots rang out, metallic, clack clack clack, sounds from rifles, but they weren't aiming yet, just a warning. His tires spun on wet asphalt as he gunned the engine, fishtailing briefly before straightening. The rain was a blur, visibility near zero. He could hear the staccato of weapons chambering, see flashes reflected in the stormwater. Every second counted. He didn't look back, but the echoes of the masked laughter burned into his mind. His hands were white on the wheel, screaming into the radio for backup, voice breaking over the static. Water streamed into the vents, cold against his neck, but he didn't notice. The BMW's interior light still glared behind him in the rearview mirror, a ghostly beacon of terror. As he hit 110 miles per hour, the storm became a tunnel, the darkness pressing in from every side. Every heartbeat felt like a lifetime. 18 minutes later, when SWAT units finally arrived, the scene had changed. Smoke rose from the center of the highway where the BMW sat, flames licking the metal in angry bursts. Rain hissed as it hit the burning car, steam curling around the wreckage. The doors were closed, windows blackened. Inside, the driver was gone, but Lucas could see the unmistakable scarlet letters on the hood, next time we won't miss, Officer Bennett. The message was carved in blood, or something darker, etched into the metal with precision that only sent chills down his spine. The officers from SWAT moved quickly, weapons raised, shouting commands, but Lucas couldn't shake the memory of those masks, red lead eyes glowing in perfect formation. They had disappeared into the storm as if they had never been there. The BMW had become an empty monument to terror. After that night, Lucas requested a permanent shift to daytime. He refused to patrol alone, refused to drive any stretch of road in darkness. He avoided highways whenever possible, replaying every detail in his mind. Every mask, every weapon, every distorted metallic voice, the precision, the organization, it haunted him. He couldn't shake the thought, they were out there, somewhere, waiting for the next officer, the next lottery. And if Lucas slowed even for a second, even for a breath, he knew he would have been next. Some nights, he swears he can still hear the faint buzz of LEDs and the wet splash of boots on asphalt when it rains. When he drives in the storm, he imagines the two rows of figures emerging again from the fog, perfectly synchronized, waiting. And he remembers the metallic voice, tonight's lottery. He prays that no officer will ever experience this again, because he knew firsthand the terror of realizing that some nights, the law could be hunted. Story 3, The Night They Hunted My Dad. The rain fell in relentless sheets over the streets of Manchester that November evening, pounding the empty roads like a warning. Jamie Whittaker, 17 at the time, sat tensely in the passenger seat of his father's car, a nervous weight pressing on his chest. Detective Sergeant Nathan Whittaker, his father, was gripping the wheel tightly, eyes flicking from mirror to mirror. The storm had turned the suburban roads into glistening rivers of reflection, making every shadow seem alive. They had just left Pizza Hut, stomachs full, spirits temporarily lifted. But within minutes, a black Range Rover without a plate emerged from the mist behind them. Its headlights cut through the darkness like twin lasers, forcing Nathan to zigzag through 11 streets in a desperate bid to shake their tail. Jamie's heart raced as his father muttered under his breath, "Hold on, lad. Just stay calm." The SUV stayed glued to them like a phantom, relentless, its engine growling through the storm. Suddenly, the Range Rover flashed its high beams. The light slammed into Nathan's rearview mirror, blinding them for a moment, then smashed the rear bumper with a deafening crunch, jolting their car. Nathan's voice went sharp, commanding. "Jamie! Call DCI Harris. Now." Jamie fumbled with his phone, wet hands shaking, dialing the number under his father's urgent instructions. Through the rain and adrenaline, he could see the black vehicle silhouette weaving behind them, impossible to escape. Nathan had learned long ago to keep a cool head under fire. The previous week, his team had seized 800 kilograms of cocaine at the port of Liverpool, a street value of £80 million. He knew exactly who would retaliate, and now they were attempting it with his son in the passenger seat. Every street felt like a trap, the puddles reflecting the strobe of taillights as if warning them, one wrong move, and it's over. Finally, they reached the empty Asda parking lot. It was an open expanse, but it might as well have been a battlefield. Nathan hit the brakes hard, tires screeching, sliding slightly in the flooded asphalt. Almost simultaneously, 8 police vehicles descended from every direction, lights flashing red and blue like a war zone. Armed officers swarmed, cutting off every escape route. Nathan wasted no time. He slid out of the car, handgun drawn, and yelled over the pounding rain, "Armed police! Show me your hands." The 3 men from the Range Rover were dragged out quickly by SWAT. One of them reached for a Glock at his waist in a last desperate attempt. Nathan didn't hesitate, a swift strike of the butt of his pistol slammed into the man's face, sending him sprawling. The storm drowned out screams, but the violence was precise, controlled, a deadly ballet choreographed by experience and adrenaline. Jamie's legs shook beneath him, terror pinning him to the car seat as he watched the unfolding chaos. The aftermath was grim, soaked in rain and tension. Nathan knelt beside Jamie, shielding him from the wind, whispering reassurances he hardly believed himself. The cartel had made their threat personal. They had sent Jamie's photo standing in front of his school, accompanied by a note that was blunt and chilling, "Your son or your money." For the first time, Nathan realized that his family had become targets, not just criminals. He had trained for danger, had faced death before, but this was different. The fear of losing his child made every heartbeat thunder painfully in his chest. In the days that followed, Nathan took 6 months off from work. He relocated his family to New Zealand, trading familiarity for safety. The memory of the chase, The high beams, the crashes, the relentless pursuit, haunted Jamie in quiet moments, in reflections on rainy windows, in the silent hum of a distant engine. Nathan never returned to England, never spoke of that night to anyone outside the immediate family. Yet the lesson lingered, etched in both their minds. Sometimes, survival depends not on strength or skill, but on being just fast enough, just lucky enough, just 5 seconds ahead of death. Every time Jamie hears tires screech in the rain or headlights cutting